Welcome to the Warning Track Power Hour. I'm Andrew Scaff. He's Mike Werman. Today we're going to recap the NFL's Week 8 action. Talk a little bit about the World Series, Major League Baseball, the Royals' new hire for manager. Then we'll talk about the NFL's Week 9 preview. Let's see, we'll start with Week 8. What was the most interesting story from Week 8 for you, Mike? Is it teams on their way up, maybe some teams on their way down, or something that didn't happen in a game at all? Maybe something off the field, maybe a Chiefs trade, or maybe someone else sharing your airplane workout regimen. What was most interesting, Mike?
Well, all of those were interesting. Most of those interesting in a pretty positive way for me, but the least interesting was my horrible betting, which we'll get around to, where I followed my 3-0 week last week with 0-3 this week. So all the gains I had are gone. But I think since the Chiefs didn't play this week, I was interested that the Chiefs were active in making a trade for Kadarius Toney, the 2021 first-round pick by the Giants, who had fallen out of favor in New York, and trading a third-round pick that was a compensatory pick, I think, for Ryan Poles, the GM, GM candidate going for Chicago now, and another six-round pick, I think, which doesn't seem like a whole lot to give away for a first-round pick, especially one still under a lot of control for the next couple of years, and also when the Chiefs are likely going to lose some of their wide receivers from this year, perhaps Hardman or Schuster will be gone. So I think that was an interesting pickup. What did you think of that trade, Andrew?
Yeah, and not very expensive too. So they got to make a move at the deadline that may or may not have much of an impact on this season, but yeah, going forward, it could be very valuable, especially if it's another speedy guy that that has been their sort of trademark for the Chiefs to have somebody that is absurdly fast, and he seems to fit that mold very well. Yeah, only going to cost $780,000 for the rest of this season, which is well within their cap room that they had left, and it seemed like they may have freed up a little bit more cap room too. So maybe there's
when they traded Rashad Fenton just today at the deadline for I think a 7th-round pick from Atlanta. He was making, I think, a couple $1 million per year since it was his
2.5, I think, is what
third year. I think it was his 3rd or 4th year, and so that frees up a little bit of cap space because Fenton had been passed anyway on the depth chart. It seems like by some of the rookies, Joshua Williams, Jalen Watson, among others. So and Trent McDuffie is coming back. It seems like this week from injured reserve. So Fenton was sort of expendable. He didn't play particularly well this year. Had a lot of penalties and big plays against him, especially in that Raiders game. Yeah. And so I think, maybe the Chiefs now have a little bit more cap space to sign a free agent, although it seems like probably it's not going to be Odell Beckham since they got Toney. But, could somebody else. We talked about Sue earlier as a possibility.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or maybe they'll just try to save the money and do something with it next year, or I don't know what they can do with the money saved.
Yeah, does that carry? That doesn't really carry over. We can add it to next year's cap, right? So, but I mean, I guess the owner can, keep it as for bonuses or something, probably for personnel or something like that, right?
Yeah, or maybe, yeah, maybe, yeah. I think you never know what's going to happen. Maybe there'll be somebody out there that ends up getting released by a team, and the Chiefs want to pick up, and it might cost a few million. There's a little bit of room for that. So, especially as one of these teams like. That are that are falling apart, tanking for next year, trying to save money as well.
Shedding salary just to
do
whatever they can, salvage what they can.
Yeah, so that could be possible too.
Yeah, but yeah, for just 1 year removed first-round pick, that seems to be pretty reasonable.
Yeah, like you said, for next year, I think it's more of a move, especially because it seems like people coming into the Chiefs offense don't contribute very much right away. Even people like Juju and Valdez-Scantling, it's taken, veterans, it's taken them several games to kind of get up to speed. And, we saw, in previous years with Josh Gordon and people like that, it's hard to, I guess, pick up the Chiefs offense quickly. Maybe Tony can step in as a punt returner in place of the struggling Sky Moore, which might also give me more chances to focus on receiving rather than punt returning. So Tony's a dynamic punt returner, it seemed like, especially from his highlights at Florida. So, Hardman also is a good punt returner, but maybe we can, also let Hardman focus more on playing offense. And Pacheco, maybe Pacheco has been playing more offense, and maybe Tony could be a kickoff returner as well, even though Pacheco's done pretty well in that role so far.
Pacheco even started the last game too, so that's at running back. So it's not, you probably don't want to be that important in the offense to be also returning kicks, because it is a somewhat bigger injury risk, if not a lot bigger injury risk to be a punt returner.
The Chiefs did it with Tyreek Hill for a little while, a couple of years. He was still the punt returner. They still would bring him out for specific kind of big occasions. But Hardman mostly filled that role, and he was an all-pro kick returner one year. So, as he becomes more of an offense, maybe that's where you put Tony for now. But also maybe you can use Tony as a gadget player in the offense, get a couple plays for him. So I'm really pleased with that pick. Maybe it's somewhat concerning that the Giants already gave up on him. Maybe he's just not cut out for to be an NFL player for one reason or another.
Yeah.
But the picks given up, I don't think were a terrible sacrifice for the Chiefs.
Well, and they still retain a pick in each of the rounds that they're giving the picks up from. So they're not really losing anything. They're just giving up the extra picks that they had received for various reasons.
I think they still seem to have a full complement of draft picks for next year. And I think most important for the Chiefs is that they kept their first round pick, because Kansas City is hosting the NFL draft next year, and they really want to have a pick in that first round because of the huge crowd that's going to be there, and not having a pick in, like this year they didn't have a pick in the first round. But if it's in Kansas City, I think they really want to have a first round pick, even if it's number 32.
Right. That's the pick that we all hope for. It's 32.
Yes. Although maybe the last time we picked 32, we picked Edwards-Helaire, and that has maybe it's worked out okay, but it hasn't been the splash that that Chiefs fans hope for, at least.
His first game this year was I think what people wanted to see from him, but he hasn't really reproduced that.
Yeah, he had a good rushing touchdown against San Francisco last week. He's averaging a decent amount per carry, but it seems like one of the strengths was supposed to be him coming out of the backfield, and he's really struggled at times to connect with Mahomes. Like he doesn't, like sometimes he doesn't get his head turned around quickly enough, or he dropped a big fourth down pass a couple games back. He's been spotty at best, even from what was supposed to be his strength. And part of it also maybe he's a little short, so if a ball is a little bit high, he has a hard time coming down with it. Like his arms maybe aren't quite as long. It seems like McKinnon's not the biggest guy either, but it seems like McKinnon's a little bit more acrobatic or able to catch balls out of the backfield than Edwards-Helaire has been.
Yeah, it seems that for some reason it always seems like he manages to become tall and skinny at times, McKinnon, and then just very fast at other times, right? Where he sort of like squeezes through spots. It's just really interesting watching him run sometimes. That he seems like he almost changes his like size depending on what the situation is, right?
Yeah, he can kind of sneak through, like he gets really narrow and kind of sneak through small holes, or he can pound people too. He's only 5'9", but it seems like like he says he seems like he plays
two or
taller.
three very different styles of play at times, depending on what it is.
Yeah,
What the situation calls for him.
he's really versatile. That's been a good pickup for the Chiefs to have. Did you? Oh, were any other off the field stories interesting to you this past week? I'm thinking of one in particular that involved transatlantic travel.
Yes, that was really interesting. Yeah. So yeah, I've heard that that you do some of these things on calisthenics on planes. Is that true or is that not true?
It's unfortunately it's not true. I have
Oh.
never really. I have stretched and things like that in the aisle. When the plane lands, or maybe even in the middle of a 7-hour flight to Europe, you need to get up and stretch your legs. But
Maybe some
I
deep
did not
lunges or
do lunges or
burpees,
burpees or
burpees in the aisle. No.
or somersaults or any high knee drills like Russell Wilson
Wow.
claimed he did while all of his teammates were fast asleep, dreaming of sugar plums or things like that. He's still active and really wanted everybody to know that he was. And well, I guess the Broncos did win against Jacksonville in London. Do you think that signals a turnaround for the Broncos this year? They're 3-5 now. Are they on the road to recovery? Are they going to be the playoff team that everybody thought they'd be?
No. Do you?
I don't think so either. They didn't. Um, they scored 21 points, which is a lot of points for Denver. But yeah, and it seems like Jacksonville's really sinking, and that wasn't a particularly impressive win. Although it's London, the games are early, it's a long ways away, it's hard, maybe, but I will, if Denver makes it back to 500 in the next couple of weeks, then I think maybe that's something to keep an eye on if you're a Chiefs fan or another potential AFC contender for a playoff spot. But right now, I don't think Denver's really shown a whole lot.
Yeah. I mean, do you think they're on par with the Chargers, or do you think they're um still like a run below the Chargers on the to be concerned about for the Chiefs, or none of them, or any of the AFC opponents really anything to be worried about for the Chiefs?
Well, we saw the Chiefs have real trouble handling the Chargers back in week 2
Yeah.
when they played on Thursday night. You could maybe dismiss some of that as weird Thursday night jitters or ill preparedness,
Mm-hmm.
but it seems like the Chargers are really built to try to dethrone the Chiefs, maybe
Mm-hmm.
more than any other team outside Buffalo. And so I would still worry more about the Chargers. They've been injured. Maybe again they're going to get healthy, I guess, at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But now Mike Williams is hurt. It was Keenan Allen before,
Mm-hmm.
and Herbert's kind of struggled with injuries. I I don't think Denver is as strong as the Chargers. I don't even know if they're as strong as the Raiders, even though of course the Raiders have been really inconsistent and in some cases downright awful. But they played the Chiefs very well in Arrowhead. So, those division games, maybe, who knows what's going to happen with Denver, but Wilson hasn't looked like the Russell Wilson of old. Even, although I guess maybe with his exercises on the plane, he had a slightly better game than he has had previously. His stats, he threw for 252 yards against the Jaguars, 1 touchdown pass, 1 interception. He only he only had a QBR of 36.7 and a regular rating of 84.3, so nothing to really write home about. But the
Mm-hmm.
the Broncos do have a pretty good rushing attack with Murray and Gordon now. They have some good receivers, but it seems like they don't get. I think, as we talked about before, I think they have a really bad coach, and Nathaniel Hackett, I think, is outwitted and outmatched in most of the games that he's coaching. maybe
Is that purely a legacy coach trait, or is it just specific to him in particular?
well, I think it's I think he was hired simply because he was a legacy and because he was Aaron Rodgers' drinking buddy, and they thought that I think at one point the Broncos thought Aaron Rodgers was going to come
That's right.
to Denver, and they ended up with Russell Wilson, who a lot of people thought was a better pick than Aaron Rodgers because he's several years younger. But
Mm.
that I don't know who I'd want this year. What kind of it's a seemingly washed up Russell Wilson or a seemingly washed up Aaron Rodgers. Who would you rather have this season as your quarterback?
I mean, I'd take neither of them. I mean, because it seems like they'd, neither of them really have a chance. I mean, if you think which team's gonna has a better chance to make the playoffs, it's gonna be by far Green Bay, even with a washed up Rodgers, if that is the case. Right?
I think so, simply because it's the NFC,
Yeah.
and the NFC is not very good. I think when all said and done, I think the best team in the NFC might actually be San Francisco, even
Yeah.
though they're only 4-4. But when McCaffrey looked really good this past week, he threw for a touchdown, he ran for a touchdown, he caught a touchdown pass, which
Mhm.
was like first time that had happened for 15 years.
Yeah.
I think LaDainian Tomlinson in like 05 was the last person to do that. Although some of those statutes are a little bit gimmicky, because what would would you rather have a 3 touchdown game kind of like that, or would you rather have 4 rushing touchdowns or something
Right.
like that? That's more common, but and also more impactful than
Well, like
just kind of
Travis Kelsey having 4 touchdown catches.
4 receiving touchdowns in
Yeah.
one game. So but McCaffrey looked really good. He looked pretty good in the short uh, amount of time that he spent on the field against the Chiefs even. So, I think if McCaffrey gets rolling, another legacy coach, Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan's son, I think he is actually a good coach, but he's been kind of held back by his quarterback, whether it be Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo. And in some
Mhm.
ways, I think he's been too successful with those quarterbacks to get a good quarterback in the draft, because Garoppolo has been able to take the team to the NFC Championship game a couple of times, Super Bowl one time, and but I guess they did draft high for Trey Lance, but he was, I believe, the 3rd quarterback taken that draft, wasn't he?
I think so. That sounds right.
He was taken at number 3 overall in the 2021 NFL draft. I'm trying to see. Do you remember? I'm trying to remember who's. Oh, it was Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson were taking 1 and 2,
Okay.
and that was also the draft where Justin Fields and Mac Jones were picked, also in the top 15. Do you think which of those quarterbacks that weren't that I think that aren't Lawrence or Wilson would you rather have? Lance, even if he was healthy, Lance, Fields, or Jones, which one of those quarterbacks would you want?
Well, I guess Daniel Jones, I suppose, right? He said at
Mac
least,
Jones, not Daniel
oh,
Jones.
Mac Jones. It's Mac Jones, yes. Well, yeah, still Mac Jones. Still Jones, different Jones, but yes. Yeah. Yeah, I guess. I mean,
I think
still pretty tough.
Fields is the most intriguing of those 3 players.
Yeah, he's probably the most interesting of the 3, but I don't know that he's gonna have any success being settled with the Bears team though.
But if he were drafted by the 49ers,
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to say what the difference would be
yeah,
initially.
I don't think Lance was a good pick, because basically
Yeah,
he played very little in college, and
yeah,
he didn't play at a high level in college. He played FCS at North Dakota State,
yeah.
and he only, looking at Lance, I think he only started 17 games in his 3 seasons at North Dakota State. He skipped almost the entire 2020 season, the COVID season. He only played one game, I think, against Central Arkansas, and he, I think the team played more like in the spring or something in 2021, but Lance opted out to go to the NFL draft. So he had very little experience in college playing quarterback, and I don't think he had, he hasn't had a ton of experience. He's been hurt this year. That's not his fault necessarily, but I like, he at least fields his experience. He played for Ohio State. He was also, along with Trevor Lawrence, when they were recruited by colleges, I think he was like one of the also top quarterbacks of that year. So I think he's been playing quarterback at a higher level longer. So, again, maybe this means that just Lance is, hasn't been battle scarred as much as these other players, but yeah, I would say that the 49ers want that pick back.
Would you have taken Lance over who's a Green Bay's backup quarterback?
Oh, Jordan Love,
who was possibly not even the best quarterback with the last name of Love from the conference he was drafted out of. Is that?
We talked about that. Yeah, a couple of years ago. Yeah, I don't know who I guess I would rather have Lance, but I wouldn't want either of those guys necessarily. They were both picked on potential, but I think talent wise and production wise, I don't think they had enough really to warrant such a high selection. I think they were more comparable maybe to somebody like Malik Willis, picked by the Titans, who played also for a kind of insignificant, at least in terms of football powerhouse. He played for Liberty University, Jerry Falwell's school, and we saw he was picked in the third round. I think some people thought he would go in the first round, but most the teams, the only quarterback picked in the first round this past year's draft was the Steelers quarterback, Cody Pickett. Yeah, he was the only one.
Kenny Pickett, right?
Kenny Pickett, not Cody. Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
Kenny, Cody, whatever.
And he has played a little bit, right, for the Steelers now.
Yeah. Since Trubisky didn't seem like he was really cutting it, so they brought in they put Pickett in. So yeah, maybe he was a hometown kid, or at least he played at University of Pittsburgh and was drafted by the Steelers.
I haven't really checked in on the Steelers. They got blown out this week.
Kenny Pickett.
He threw 38 passes for only 191 yards in this most recent game. Was sacked 6 times. Pretty tough game.
Yeah. So he's played. Yeah, he's thrown 2 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Quarterback rating of 66.8, a QBR of 38.6. So not very good so far. Yeah. He's only started 4 games, but he's completing a number of passes. I think he got unlucky on some of his interceptions, and the Steelers' offense is not very good. So I don't necessarily think that he's going to struggle forever, but
He did rush for, in the last game. He did rush for 37 yards on 7 carries. He did also fumble twice.
Yeah, he's reminds me a little bit of.
If you get hit that many times, you're bound to fumble some of the times, right?
Yeah, he reminds me a little bit of kind of the excitement, but the not very good play of former Chiefs quarterback Tyler Thigpen. Do you remember him?
Yeah, he's one of those upper echelons of the Chiefs history, right? Wait. No.
Yeah, the Chiefs went 1. This is 2008. So when the Chiefs went 1-10, and when Thigpen started, but he did throw 18 touchdowns and 12 picks He only started one game after he left Kansas City
Is that right?
for Miami in 2010. Actually,
Wow.
he was out of the league by 2012. He played for the Chiefs, the Dolphins, and then the Bills. And he was signed to the Browns, but released before the 2014 season. After the signing of Rex Grossman, it says.
Oh.
Oh, but then he re-signed with the Browns when Johnny Manziel and Brian Hoyer got hurt. Somebody didn't end up playing for the Browns. Those are some top name quarterbacks: Rex Grossman, Johnny Manziel, and Brian Hoyer.
Yes.
No wonder the Browns have been so unsuccessful for so long.
I'm willing to bet that we may have the only podcast YouTube show that mentioned all of those quarterbacks. Is that going out on a limb?
I don't think it's I think if it's a limb, it's a fairly sturdy limb that should hold most of your body weight.
Okay, I'm not worried.
A trunk-like limb, maybe. But yeah, that's who he kind of reminds me of, is Thigpen. But
yeah, that was one of the worst years of
Thigpen was maybe a little bit more of a runner.
Yeah.
Than Pickett. It might just be their names too, so they're sort of Tyler Thigpen, Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
They have that kind of
yeah.
I don't know, kind of quality of a name to me. But were there any other event? So, speaking of, we talked briefly about the washed up, possibly Rodgers and Russell Wilson. What about Tom Brady's performance? Do you think he's going to retire after this year? Is he going to go someplace else? Do you think, or stick with Tampa after this year? They're 3-5, like the Packers are 3-5.
Well, I think but there's things that happened in the off season. Splitting with Giselle. I think he almost has to play another season. Don't you ever like? I mean, if it was worth going through a divorce to play one more season, you have to play more than one season, right?
I think so too. And it seemed like he wanted to go to Miami this past off season, so he wasn't afraid of going someplace besides Tampa either. Maybe he ends up in San Francisco next year.
I think he would go somewhere else, but I think it has to be a destination city that probably already has like decent receivers.
Well, both Rodgers and Brady have ties to the Bay Area.
That's right.
Do you think which player do you think more likely would end up there or at least play next season? Do you think Rodgers is much younger or several years younger now?
Yeah.
Do you think if his team does, if Green Bay say the flames out and goes 6-11 or something like that, do you think he tries to go someplace else? Does he stick it out with Green Bay, or does he retire?
I think he could easily convince another team that the problems that he has had are not actually because of him. They're actually because of Green Bay's coach and general manager, forcing him to try to do something that he's not comfortable with. So I think he'd easily can make that a conversation with somebody, and at least be able to go somewhere else. But I don't know. San Francisco, if they are tied to Trey Lance, then they may not want to do that because they'd have to put Lance back down again for another year. I don't know if they want to wait
or trade him someplace.
Or trade him. That's a lot of work to do.
So I can't see them for
like 1 year though, because they're really only looking for 1 year from Rodgers or Brady should they do it. So that's one of those things where like the player may want another year, but I don't know that the team's going to want to give him a year. Does that make sense?
But it's also one of those things where I can't see the 49ers keeping Garoppolo next year.
No, probably not. I mean, even if they go back to like the NFC Championship game,
I don't think Garoppolo will want to stay because he feels like he's not wanted, even though he has some success.
Yeah,
but maybe that's the best place for him because they can dictate. He's been successful there.
You
It's
think he would go back? You think he would try to go to New England
Garoppolo.
or Brady, either one?
Hmm.
Because Garoppolo
Like,
got forced out of New England, right?
yeah, yeah. He
By,
was,
by Brady, because Brady didn't want him
but
there.
he was Belichick's guy.
Yeah.
I could see him coming back to New England. I
Mhm.
could, I could also see Rodgers winding up in some weird place, like that next year. It's a yeah. I think next year these aging quarterbacks and the unwanted quarterbacks, even from like Garoppolo, it's going to be interesting because I don't think it seems like New England doesn't have an answer at quarterback, even though their team's okay. Mac Jones doesn't seem really much better than Bailey Zappi right now, and
But he seems
he's
to be
let
back in the starting role.
yeah, and they won last week with him,
Mhm.
but I
And
don't
they
think it
didn't, and
sits.
they didn't switch quarterbacks
No,
during
I don't
the
think it sits well
campaign.
with them that Bailey Zappi was more popular. They were cheering for Bailey Zappi and not Mac Jones in New England's loss to Chicago. So
Mhm. Yeah. So I was going to ask, yeah. So, well, yeah. I would think that Rodgers may be more likely to go somewhere, but I don't know that he has the pull to go to where he necessarily wants to go. It would be my guess. I think Brady could. I think he'll only go to certain places, but I think Rodgers might go to a weird place. You know,
yeah,
that's what I could see him going, just somewhere crazy, just to show he's better than Green Bay.
yeah. I think Rodgers has a contract
Yeah, yeah. I think
into
yeah.
2024, so he might he might opt for he might more likely opt for retirement than playing someplace else.
Yeah, sometimes they'll just cancel the contract though too if they mutually agree upon some kind of buyout or
Yeah, maybe.
cancellation of a contract. Just if you can get an offer somewhere else, they may just like release him, let him try to find somewhere else if he wants to go, or they can try to trade him, but I don't know if they're going to give up anything for him necessarily. But I can see him going somewhere great, like bizarre, like a Jacksonville or a, you know, just to do it,
Yeah,
just to say that he is better than the Green Bay system was trying to force onto him, right? Um, but I'd
yeah.
only see Brady going somewhere where he wants to go, and that's it. Like, and it'd have to be like a destination, so a bigger city with
You don't
a
think he's
team
going
that's
to
already
go
built
to
around it for
the
him.
Titans with instead of
I can't
Tannehill
imagine
or
it. I wouldn't think so.
Houston?
No, I don't think so. I think it's
I
good.
think
It'd be like San Francisco, maybe New England again, possibly.
Washington,
Nope, I don't think so. The team's not good enough. I don't think it
Indianapolis.
matters about the defense. I think it's only I think he only cares about his side of the ball. We might guess.
Okay.
Trying to like go into the what I think the Tom Brady mentality is. Is that's my read on it anyway.
Did you maybe do you want to go into our bets for last week and see how we did?
Sure.
You started you started off well, right? Who
I
did
did. Yeah.
what was your
I had
first?
I had the Thursday night game, the
The,
Baltimore at Tampa. I had Baltimore minus 1.5. It's a close game, but Baltimore ended up holding on and winning and covering that too. So sorry, finally got an early win.
yeah, it was a first Thursday night bet for a while, and yeah, they Baltimore won outright and they covered
Mhm.
and they looked pretty good doing it, even with Mark Andrews going down. They won 27-22.
It was a road game, so they weren't at risk for blowing a huge lead and then losing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Most of the big leads that they lost at home. So you were successful out right off the bat. As we indicated earlier, I was unsuccessful all day. I think
loud unsuccessful.
on Sunday, yeah, I had picked the Las Vegas Raiders in my only point spread game of the week. I'd picked the Raiders, who were favored by 2 points on the road in New Orleans. I thought they'd score quite a few points. I thought New Orleans was really struggling, but it turns out that the Raiders laid a big goose egg and lost 24-0. So I missed that one by 26 points.
And I just read this stat about their futility in that game. They did not make it to the other side of the field until the 2-minute warning of the second half.
Oh, wow.
How?
Yeah,
How is that possible?
I don't know. Alvin Kamara had a big game, and Derek Carr threw. Jarrett Stidham got into the game.
I guess that was late. That was how they got onto the other side of the field, was with Stidham.
Yes, Stidham was 8 for 13 for 72 yards with better stats looking than Carr going through for 101 yards. But yeah, Stidham, yeah, we remember Stidham from his time in New England getting beaten out for the starting job by Cam Newton and then leaving and things like that. So it's, yeah, that was a very bad game for the Raiders. And which team do you think's in better shape right now? The Raiders or the Broncos in the AFC West, of the two teams with losing records?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for right now, I think it'd have to be. Well, I think the Raiders are in far the worst possible shape you could be in. I think right now
they're 2-6 to the 3-5 of the Broncos.
Yeah, but getting shut out, having to put your backup quarterback in just to like finish a game, not making it onto the other side of the field for most of the game. That's hard to see much light at the end of the tunnel there.
They also have a rookie.
Least,
they also have
and especially because
coach.
the Broncos just won too. It wasn't, yeah. So they have to be trending at least somewhat up, and the Raiders look
Yeah. Would you rather have Josh McDaniels or Nathaniel Hackett as your head coach?
No. Is that it? Is that an
No
answer?
head coach. Yeah.
Prior
to this week, I would have thought.
Do I have to answer this?
Prior to this week, I would have thought the Raiders were in better shape, but now I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Well, how did your second bet go, Andrew?
So the one that I missed was possibly because I picked in the same game that you had chosen from.
Yeah,
maybe I could have just run away from any game that you.
My sphere of awfulness engulfed
spilled over on my side of bets too. But I took the over on that because both the Raiders and New Orleans had a very good record against the over, covering the over, but they didn't come anywhere close. A goose egg doesn't help cover an over. And so it was over-under was a 49.5. They missed that by mere 25.5 points. So even a late flurry would have been not helpful. I could turn that one off basically at the third, saying there's absolutely no chance of getting that. So just write that one off mentally.
Yeah, I was perhaps even worse with my second bet than you were. I had picked, this is the Bears Cowboys game. I picked the under there. Again, a lot of games this year have been going under. The teams have been scoring less than previous years. The Bears offense is not very good. The Cowboys have had a strong defense and not a really great offense either. So I thought under 42.5 was a distinct possibility. I thought maybe it would be a 24-14 type of game with the Cowboys winning. However, it turned out to be a 49-29 contest. A grand total of 88 points were scored.
Yes.
In that game, the Cowboys themselves went over the point total of the whole contest. So I missed that one by 35.5 points. 88 points were scored. I was going to be under 42.5. So that was a real blowout from the very beginning.
Even if 5 touchdowns didn't happen, still would have covered. Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Not a good bet.
But it doesn't matter, right? I mean, it's one loss is one loss, right? So it's not
Yeah.
how bad the loss is irrelevant. You don't lose more money if they lose worse, right?
Yeah, my third bet was better in terms of score. I picked under the Miami Detroit game. That was a higher total, 51.5. I thought Miami hadn't been playing that well on offense, even with Tua's return. Detroit had been shut out one of the 2 weeks previously, and I think only scored 6 points the next week. So they're averaging 3 points per game in of the previous 2 weeks, and that game soared over the 51.5 as well. I guess it was only 58 points total, a 31-27 Dolphins victory, but still an over.
It was a scoreless fourth quarter too.
Yes.
So they hit the over like fairly fast and then just quit, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing though. They hit the over 6 minutes into the into the third quarter, into the second half.
Well, they're only at 51 points 6 years. It was 27-24. They're only at 51. It was only with 12 seconds left in the third quarter when Mike Gesicki caught the touchdown pass from Tua to make it over. But half a point in 21 minutes. I needed to eke out, but yeah, that was not. Your third bet went much better than my third bet.
Yeah, I was betting on the Giants winning ways to come to at least maybe a quick halt anyway against the Seahawks. I had Seahawks -3, and they covered that pretty handily.
27-13 they won.
Yeah, 27-13. Yeah, it was a pretty close game until later, I think. And the Seattle kind of
in the fourth quarter. Yeah, the Giants had been kind of winning the fourth quarters, but then here their kind of luck ran out at the end of the game. I think. Which team is? Do you think the Seahawks are a real contender in the NFC?
I think they've got a really good shot. Yeah, I think they may be. They could end up taking the West. Actually, I think they're in the lead right now, right?
They're one game up on San Francisco at 4-4. Although San Francisco beat the Seahawks pretty handily when they played their only game so far. That was in San Francisco, 27-7. I think San Francisco. So I think the Seahawks might be able to make the playoffs for sure, especially given the kind of. I think that maybe the Giants also can still might make the playoffs. I think both of those teams are playoff caliber in the kind of otherwise pretty moribund NFC. But yeah, I especially seeing like those big powers of yesteryear. I don't know if the Rams are going to be able to make the playoffs. I don't know if Green Bay or Tampa Bay will make the playoffs. So that's each of those teams is under 500, only 3 wins on the season. So
the 49ers are actually in the right now hold the last playoff spot at 4-4. If the season ended right now.
The season ended right now, they would be in the playoffs.
Yes.
And the 49ers are
the 49ers would be the 7th spot. Yeah. Giants would be in at 6. Cowboys would have the other wild card slot at 5.
The 49ers also have a plus 29 point differential, which puts them tied for 3rd in the conference. They're tied with the 6-1 Vikings and ahead of the Seahawks. That's pretty amazing, I think. Only behind Dallas and Philadelphia.
Are as good as their 6-1 record?
Yeah, the Giants are 6-2 with only a plus 6 point differential.
Do they
That's
have a similar like Pythagorean stat like they do in baseball for
I think
football
they
based
must
on
like the Giants are a
win
4-4
against?
team by that point status. Although sometimes in football, you can run up the score or whatever. That I
Hmm.
think there's kind of diminishing returns on some of those big victories. But yeah, the Chiefs have are 5-2, and they have a plus 51 point differential, which is second in behind the Bills in the
Hmm.
NFC. Their opponent for next week, the Titans, are 5-2. They have a -6 point differential. So
That's impressive.
yeah, and do you know the only team with a positive point differential in the AFC South?
I no, I oh well, Jacksonville had that big shutout.
Yes, Jacksonville is 2-6, but they're plus 14 on
That's crazy. Yeah, because they had that big win against Chargers.
against the Chargers and a shutout against Indianapolis.
Yeah,
So
I don't know. This season doesn't make a lot of sense in a lot of
it doesn't make
ways.
a lot of sense. And we both got there kind of different ways, but now we're each 11. We're 10-14
14.
on the season, -400 through 8 weeks. So we're only losing $50 a week at this
That's right.
point, which is saying something.
It's such an improvement from where we were before. I mean, I was averaging $100 a week loss not too long ago. So my last couple weeks have really saved my season, I guess.
Well, before we get to our next week picks and see how we do, do you want to talk? You want to switch and talk a little bit about baseball?
Sure. The as we
World
speak,
Series is going on.
the Phillies Astros game 3 is now in the top of the 8th inning. Phillies are ahead 7-0 still.
7-0 Phillies. It looks like so the Phillies will likely take a 2-1 series lead. Does that change your perception on the series? Do you think that Philadelphia now has a chance?
Well, they're actually in the driver's seat, right? Because they stole a game.
They have 2 more home games coming up.
And then yeah, because of I guess it was during COVID actually, they switched to the 2-3-2 scheduling, so it's not the 2-2-1-1-1
They
that
used
they
to
probably
they
used
used
to
to
have.
have the 2-2-3-2. That was the old way of doing it.
And then they had switched to the 1-1-1, right? At
Oh,
the
did
end.
they? I don't remember that.
And
Okay.
then they went back to the 2-3-2, I believe. I believe that's right.
I like the
Um
classic 2-3-2. Yeah.
yeah, I like the 2-2-1-1-1 because it doesn't create the scenario like we have right now, where if you win one game on the road to start as a road team, then you can win the series at home without ever having to go back to the other city.
Yeah. I think
It's better for travel this way, but I don't think it's the best for if there actually is a home field advantage. Like, there's a slight home field advantage in baseball, right? Isn't it like like 2 or 3% in favor of the home team? It's not much. It's just a slight edge.
yeah. I,
But
th- I was
when your games are like a coin toss, then
I was thinking that the MLB always did 2-3-2.
hmm, I thought it was a switch.
I don't know when the Royals were playing, it was 2-3-2. When the Royals played the
Giant,
Mets, it was 2-3-2. The Mets had the
yeah.
middle 3 games. That's why the Royals, um, I think the Royals won their first 2 at home, and then they lost one at the Mets, and then they won the next 2 to go 4-1. I think the ALCS has sometimes been 2-2-1-1-1,
Okay,
but
okay.
I don't know. We can check that
But
in post.
regardless, yes, the Phillies are in the driver's seat though, right? They can win out at home without having to go back to Houston.
I think especially given the fact that Houston is seen as a team that does not play fair, and a team I think that does even better when they're at home than they are on the road because of these, seeming illegalities that they're attached to. I think, yeah, I think it would
And maybe some
The
new ones too that popped up in the last game, game 2.
Yeah, we had a perhaps illegal substance being used, right?
That was apparently caught on video, but I don't think they talked about it during the game anyway. That they showed Framber Valdez was rubbing the palm of his hand in a way that looked like he was trying to put something onto the tips of his fingers to maybe get a little more spin on the ball. That has been something that has been shown in Houston, is that pitchers who've gone to Houston, their spin rates like go up almost immediately.
Yeah.
As soon as they get there, whether it's a technique thing or a technique thing that involves a substance, has not been proven, I don't think, but they have seen an increase in spin rate in suddenly arriving in Houston.
And it looks like, yeah, also former Royals catcher Martin Maldonado, who's also had an illegal bat that was confiscated in game 1. So yeah, I don't know if the Houston's cheating days are behind them.
Does not appear to be so.
But I think I am feeling much more confident about the Phillies' chances at victory than I did going into the series. So I don't think anybody outside the Houston area really is rooting for the Astros.
That's right. That's why I say bet. Thank you.
Yeah. So for what it seems like, the Phillies are going to be up 2-1 with 2 more home games. So maybe they can close it out. And I guess it wouldn't put it past them either to be able to take another game in Houston since they've done it already.
There's one interesting piece of trivia that I happened to spot this week, that was associated with game 2 of the World Series. The umpire for the game, Pat Hoberg, apparently umped a perfect game where every pitch that he called the ball was outside of the pitch tracks designated box. Every pitch he called a strike was inside the designated pitch tracks box. So he had a 100% accuracy for balls and strikes called. There's a website which I was totally unaware of before hearing the statistic and then finding the website afterwards, umpscorecards.com. They have 18,209 games where they have a scorecard on the umpire for each of the game. How many recorded perfect umpiring games do you think there have been? And this goes from, I think, 2015 to present. So 18,000 games. How many 100% accuracy games?
I'm going to guess it's rare, of course. I'd say well under 100, probably under 20. Let's say 12.
That's a solid, rational thought. But this actually is the only instance.
Wow.
So this is the only time it's happened, apparently.
Is Pat Hoberg going to be the basis of the new robot eye that is coming down the pike in
I think he'd have
a few years? Or would he be the only umpire that would not have to use a robot, since he was able to call a perfect game?
I think that's really how it should be used, is that they should be given these report cards, basically, maybe even during the game, like saying well, you're missing the outside corners, to see if they can correct it. And if they don't correct it, then it's like it hastens the move to just having it called by pitch tracks. We already have that. We see it on the television now, like what the capability of the robot umpire. So
it says, I was reading about Hoberg just now. It says earlier in the 22 season, Hoberg was 1 missed call away from calling another perfect game.
So he has a really good record, apparently, as an umpire, that particular umpire, Pat Hoberg.
But he's much better than somebody like Angel Hernandez or
right,
Joe West.
Cowboy Joe West.
Wow.
Yes.
Also, we also had some more local.
Anytime you can have an 18,000 game sample size and be the only instance, that's kind of impressive, right?
It is impressive.
So now, should he be praised for this, or should that just be what is? Should it be much more common?
Well, I think
You just be like, yeah, good. That's what you did. You actually did your job correctly.
well, I think Pat Hoberg is going to become the John Henry of umpires, the only one who could beat the robot.
Yes.
But he's going to maybe die trying, just as John Henry tried to go against the machine that could lay the rails faster than a human. And so he might become a folk hero of similar stature to John Henry, the steel driving man.
Pat Hoberg, future folk hero.
Speaking of potential future folk heroes, do you think the Royals have one in their pick of Matt Quatraro as the new manager? What do you think of that? What do you think of that hire? Former Rays coach Matt Quatraro.
Their former bench coach. I think it was a really good hire, a solid hire. I didn't really know much about him before the announcement. I read a bit about him, and it's pretty interesting. So he does have a lot of history with Tampa. Drafted by Tampa and made it up to the AAA team. And then he moved over to coaching. He started as the assistant catchers coach at low A in the Tampa organization. He worked his way up to manager in the A-ball system. We're getting hired the Cleveland Indians organization as a third base coach, where he probably met or at least may have known of, or John Sherman knew of him, because Sherman would have been an owner of the Indians there. The then Indians, now Guardians. So yeah, before coming back to the Rays, and then moving into the bench coach role, when was it Charlie Montero got selected to be the Blue Jays head coach, so the opening for the bench coach was open. So he's been with the organization that knows how to develop players, been successful at developing players, and on a budget too. So that's the right model that the Royals need to go after. And I think they may have done a good job selecting someone.
Yeah, both Cleveland and Tampa do that sort of thing, and Cleveland had the youngest roster in the league this year, and they still made the playoffs. The Rays were over 500 this year and also made the playoffs. They lost to Tampa in the wild card. So, I mean, they lost to Cleveland in the wild card. So, yeah, I think both those organizations are good to pick people from. It seems like Piccolo is doing a solid job, and I guess it could have been. I think some wouldn't have been surprised had the Royals picked Pedro Grifol to be their next manager, longtime bench coach and hitting coach for the Royals, but he ended up going to Chicago, where it seems like he's going to be the White Sox new manager. What do you think of that hire for the White Sox, and how does that impact the Royals with Pedro Grifol leaving town?
That was probably the best thing that could happen for the Royals, is that they wouldn't have a disgruntled bench coach being passed over. But then still forced to stay in the same role while an equivalent person from another organization came in on top of them. I think that would have been pretty bad for the Royals to have that situation develop. But I think it's going to be great for Grifol though too. I think he fits really nicely into the White Sox organization with a lot of Latin American players. Grifol has always been the translator for the Latin American players for the Royals, young players that aren't necessarily confident speaking English during interviews. So I think he'll have a much better chance of communicating with the young, kind of brash players that the White Sox have. Much better than what La Russa managed to do when they chose. I was surprised when they chose La Russa for one thing. That didn't seem like it fit very well. It played out.
He had been the White Sox manager back in the 80s, but yeah, now he had the health problems, and he's seen as kind of being more increasingly out of touch with younger players, then I think
Yeah.
becoming increasingly kind of Trumpy and just not maybe in step with younger culture.
Yeah.
Do you think Grifol or Quatraro wins more games next year?
Well, the White Sox roster is built to win now. If the White Sox don't win more games, something has gone very wrong. So, I mean, I would fully expect the White Sox to win more games next year.
The White Sox were 81 and 81.
But
They were
very
44.
disappointingly,
They were
81.
44 and 37 on the road, but they were 37 and 44 at home, which makes them, I believe, the only team in the American League that had a home record that was worse than their road record.
That's pretty odd. That's not very normal.
The
I think the White Sox
Rangers,
were likely. I mean, I think they were expected to win the division,
yeah, I think they were too.
maybe handily, and make a deep playoff run. I think was kind of the expectation before the season started, and then that did not go that way at all. And
Cleveland and the Rangers each finished with the same record home and away. The Cleveland was 46 and 35, both home and away, and the Rangers were 34 and 47, both home and away.
so no home field advantage at all for those guys. That's
Yeah,
even splits. That's pretty odd.
A couple of teams in the National League were worse on the road than worse at home than they were on the road. But both of those were the Marlins and the Nationals who finished with well over 90 losses each.
Poor records, yeah.
The Royals' home record versus road record was they were almost 500 at home, 39 and 42, 26 and 55 on the road. So only 3 games under 500 at home, 29 games under 500. So
dramatic split there.
Maybe do you think some of that comes from their players having no COVID tests and going to Toronto? And I don't know what their
one series, but
what was their record in the Toronto series? I don't remember, but
I don't know. But I mean, that really did throw the team, in peril there for a little while, right? Because I mean, that really hastened the switch to going to the young players.
Yeah, maybe you think that having young players also either more comfortable playing at home than they are on the road, maybe more so than veterans too. So that could be part of it.
Yeah, but do you think that they wouldn't necessarily know the home park as well defensively as they'd be on the same, like they may be playing at home with the opponents having played more games in the home park than they had.
I guess that's true, but maybe traveling is more, it's a different. I think major league travel is a little different. It's a little cushier than minor league travel, and maybe maybe it's far longer distances mostly, and it's, I don't know, maybe you just don't focus as much on the road as you do at home. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how the Royals do, especially with Quatraro, and if he can get things turned around even a little bit next year. I don't expect the Royals to have a winning record next season, but
wouldn't think so.
I would expect them at least to get within sniffing distance of 500. That would be the hope with the new manager.
Well, I think maybe the first year is just to see an improvement in record from this season, which won't take a whole lot, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, winning at least something in the 70s rather than something in the 60s.
Just have more wins next year than they had this season. I think that should be the only goal they set as a team, just so that they can hopefully clear that bar easily, right?
And maybe not to be last place in the Central as well.
That'd be nice, but I don't think they don't really have control over that.
Yeah, that's true.
So much, but yeah, if they could just win more games than they won this year, would be. I think it should be the only goal they really set publicly. Maybe internally they may have other ideas, but I think a lot of it's just tightening up the way they actually run the team is probably the next few steps. But this also creates a situation where typically the manager gets to pick his bench coach, And if Griffola didn't get a job somewhere else, then it might be a weird forced upon Quatraro having a bench coach that was already here. Might not be the best situation. So this I think this is better. He'll at least get to pick, even if he picks an internal person. That might
Yeah,
be
maybe
fun.
somebody who knows the players a little bit. You might want at least a little, maybe in a different. Probably you want somebody maybe that was with some of these players in the minor leagues, and maybe now in the major leagues to give them some comfort level or something. At least who's familiar with the way how the pitching staff works. I guess you want, excuse me. I guess you want the players to, the manager to get to know the team in the off season and see how things go in training. But I think you don't necessarily want to be just a complete clean slate with players that don't feel comfortable or know anybody, and coaching staff who doesn't know anybody either coming in.
Right.
Because Piccolo was here before, so I guess he can.
Hopefully, we'll keep some consistency at least anyway. But and I mean, but yeah, I think that this was like the better way to, like, from at least the psychology of it, right? Where you have a chance to put a new organization together without burning the old one down. And it seems like they picked the right strategy. They looked at the right team to model off of. Because I think one of the other choices they were looking at for GM was the third base coach. I think for the Dodgers was Clayton McCullough. I think that would have been, it's nice to go to a team that has a winning record and is a bit of a juggernaut, but that's not the kind of team I think you're trying to build here. Well, that's not where you are now, at least anyway.
Yeah, I like
them going to Tampa, and I like them not spending a lot of money to like go get like a Joe Madden or somebody like that. I think it would have been nice to have that kind of guy, but I don't think they were want to spend that kind of money to bring him in.
Yeah, I also like the Quatraro pick because I just looked at Clayton McCullough. He's actually a year younger than us.
Is that right?
Manager. So I think still having a manager who's older than the two of us makes me feel a little better.
Yeah. How old is Quatraro? I didn't.
Quatraro was born in 73.
Okay.
So he's 40. I think he's 49.
It's like 5 years.
Yeah. McCullough was born in December of 79. So Quatraro is only 48. He's born in November of 73. So
yeah.
But he's a few years older than us at least. Whereas Quatraro, whereas McCullough is a younger. He's even younger than we are.
Yeah.
Like Grifol, like Quatraro, and McCullough also never made the major leagues. He only reached AAA. Do you know the last Royals manager who did not play in the majors?
I have a guess. I would guess it was a manager who did not have a lot of success. I'm gonna go with Trey Hillman.
Yes, Trey Hillman was the last non-major league manager. He was Nate Moore's first hire as manager and did not do terribly well. 2008, 2010.
At the time, I kind of talked myself into thinking that could be a good pick.
Yeah, I think when at the time people thought he was going to be a good pick. He was a strong manager in Japan. He had so, but it turned out he didn't.
I think the most important part of it was the Yankees wanted him.
Yeah,
and the Royals got him, and so that seemed like a win for the Royals, and then it didn't turn out that way.
No. All right, that's maybe enough for baseball for now. Do you want to talk about Week 9 of the NFL season to wrap things up?
Let's do it.
Well, I think this is an interesting week because this is the first time, or at least in several weeks, that neither of us has picked the Chiefs game as a game that we're going to bet on. The Chiefs are 12.5-point favorites at home against the Titans. We don't know who the Titans quarterback is going to be in this game. I think Ryan Tannehill was hurt last week. He had an ankle issue, and he also was a little bit ill from some sort of stomach virus. and third round quarterback drafted from this year, Malik Willis, played. Willis had only 50 some yards passing. He had an interception. However, the team had more than 300 yards rushing on the ground, including 219 yards from Derrick Henry. Do you expect Henry to keep running it the way he did against the Chiefs, or are the Titans going to try to open it up more in the air against Kansas City?
I think they'll run a lot, but I don't think they're not going to have the success that I don't think that they had against their last opponent. So
yeah, I think the
I
Titans
I don't expect to see another 200-yard performance.
Yeah, I think the Titans are much weaker than they were last year, even though they have a pretty good record. They don't have AJ Brown at receiver anymore. He was their best player, and he did very well against the Chiefs usually too, from what I remember. So, yeah, I think, they're going to try running with Henry, and then I don't know if they'll have Tannehill will have much more success in the air. It seems like than Willis, at least given the fact that previous history. But we also there's a little trivia tidbit from the Titans. Derrick Henry had his 6th 200-yard rushing game in his career. That ties him for the NFL record for most 200-yard career rushing games. Do you know that he's tied? Do you know the 2 other running backs who are tied with Derrick Henry?
I heard the stat during the broadcast, and I don't remember who it was. It was classic big name player, I'm pretty sure.
Two big name players who have had, let's say, checkered off the field careers.
Checkered pass. No, it's not coming to me. Who are they?
One of them is Orenthal James Simpson, who had 6 200-yard rushing games in his career for the Bills and the 49ers. I don't know if he had any for the 49ers. And the other is, I guess, slightly less checkered than OJ, who probably murdered some people. And that was Adrian Peterson, who of course has all sorts of child abuse kind of allegations and arrests and things like that raised against him. So how much do you think the NFL wants Derrick Henry to have the record by himself, or does this bode poorly for Henry's post NFL career?
Yeah, is he or would he not have any weird scandals in the future had he not tied that record?
Yeah, some of the more famous running backs who, for example, another stat that I read was that Henry has 4 of his 200-yard rushing games, including last week. 4 of those 6 200-yard rushing games came against the Texans. So he has more 200-yard rushing games against the Texans than Jim Brown, Barry Sanders, and LaDainian Tomlinson each have in their entire careers. They only had 3 200-yard rushing games each, and Henry has had 4 against
just one team.
Against one team.
Wow. So like as you mentioned before, though, I do think the NFL very much wants Henry to get another 200-yard rushing game to kind of erase those names from at least one record anyway, right? But yeah, do you think he has a chance to get it against the Chiefs, or does the Chiefs rush defense improve so much that that's not possible?
I don't think he's going to get 200 yards. I think it's possible. I think even if the Chiefs allow 200 yards rushing from Derrick Henry, that doesn't mean they're not going to win the game, because the Titans only scored 17 points last week with 219 yards from Henry. So if the Titans only score 17 points, I think the Chiefs have a very, very, very good shot at winning. So, as long as those aren't like, Derrick Henry has like 4, long rushing touchdowns or something like that really put on the points, I think the Chiefs will be in good shape. And he hasn't run particularly well against the Chiefs. They haven't needed to use him as much.
Mhm.
It's been the passing attack from Tannehill that's really hurt the Chiefs. And
But yeah, the last few years they were, I mean, their defense was so terrible against the run too. But Derrick Henry did kind of like eat him up a few times, but not. They weren't handing the ball to him like 30 times a game. It was only like
okay,
20
so
times.
Has had 3 regular season games against the Chiefs. One of those games was a very big game. He had 288 rushing yards, so not quite
Yeah.
200. But that was the game that the Chiefs lost. That was the Super Bowl season where the Chiefs lost because of a botched field goal and things like that at the end. It was Mahomes' first game back from injury and things like that. And that was the same year the Chiefs would beat the Titans in the AFC Championship game. So the other 2 games, Henry has been held in the regular season, has been held to under 100 yards, 58 one time and 86 on 29 carries the other time.
A lot
So
of carries.
yeah. So yeah. So so do you have a lean on the Chiefs? Do you think plus 12 and a half, minus 12 and a half is you think they'll win by 12 and a half, or you think they're
I think they'll win relatively handily, but I could see them winning by less than 12 and a half. I think I don't actually want to bet this game this time. It's not on my list of bets this time.
It's not on my list. I want to stay far away.
Forced to bet it. I actually might take Tennessee with the points.
The points, yeah.
Yeah. But assuming the Chiefs win, but just by less than 12 and a half. A 10-point win seems pretty handy win, at least anyway. Especially because chances are they would give up like a late touchdown or something to get them within 10, right?
Yeah, like the Tampa Bay game when they won 41-31, they gave Tampa, late touchdown or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Philly Houston game is final now. 7-0 was the final.
Okay. So up 2 games to 1.
2-2. Or 2-1. 2-1, yeah. 2-1.
The Chiefs over under is 46.5. Titans, I would stay away from that. It's one of those games where you think, the Chiefs could score 40 points by themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's one of those, what do you think is going to happen? I would say lower scoring than that, but Chiefs would win by 10 or so would be my guess. But basically anything can happen, and that's why I don't want to bet on this game.
Yeah, I don't either. So so the first game that I ended up betting on was this week was New England at home against the Colts. New England is favored by 5.5. I think New England will cover that. It's at home. The Colts with Sam Ellinger are not a very good offensive team. Even New England with its quarterback issues, I think at home, I think they'll win that game by a touchdown or more. And yeah, so I think I'm picking New England minus 5.5 over Indianapolis.
How did Indy do last week?
Indianapolis lost to the Commanders 17-16 at home. And they lost to the Titans the week before 19-10.
Been relatively low scoring games, but they've been losing. So
yeah, they've in only one game have the Colts scored more than 20 points.
Wow.
They beat Jacksonville 34-27. Even when they beat the Chiefs, they only scored 20 points. It was 27. So
interesting.
Yeah. So I think I don't know. Again, that could be, who knows what's going to happen. I like the Patriots in that spot. How about your first bet for this week?
My first pick, I liked the way some of my games went the last couple of weeks. And last week I bet on Seahawks. This week they're an underdog on the road against Arizona, and I think that Seattle's maybe on a roll. I think they've got a chance to extend their lead over Arizona, at least anyway. Maybe try to keep pace for a playoff run. They're going to need to win this game on the road. So I'm going to take Seattle +2 at Arizona.
I think that's gonna be I think that's a decent bet as well. Although the Cardinals kind of surprisingly have had they haven't been as unsuccessful, I think, as it seems like they're 3-5 on the year,
Mm-hmm.
but they've been playing most teams pretty close. They only lost by a field goal to the Eagles. They lost, by a touchdown at the Vikings. The only game they really were out of was the Chiefs game.
Mm-hmm. And that
So
was ages ago.
yeah, they did lose by 10 at Seattle, 19-9, only 3 weeks ago. So maybe Seattle knows how to play the Cardinals. So yeah, that seems reasonable. My my second pick, I decided to go for like you did last week, go for the Thursday night game. So
Mm.
game this week is the Eagles Texans. I did not make a bet on the spread, but I am going to make an over under bet, and the Eagles are favored by 14 in that game, but the over under is 45, and I'm going to go Eagles Texans under. I don't think the Eagles will score that many points. They might get 24, 28 or something like that, but I think they're going to hold the Texans to a very modest total. So I think that's going to be the Texans on the year, like the Colts. There's only one game so far this year that they've scored more than 20 points, and that was in a loss to the Chargers, 34-24. So I think they scored 10 points last week against Tennessee. I think it's Thursday night, anything can happen, but a lot of these Thursday night games have been very low scoring so far this year. So I think under 45, maybe a 28, even a 28-14 game or something like that would go under. And I could see it, 24/7, something like that, Eagles. So I'm hoping going with the under there.
So even if you look to the last game for the Eagles, they beat Pittsburgh 35-13, which would go over. But I don't know that Houston's better than Pittsburgh. So even if the Eagles did score 35 points.
Yeah, and then that was Eagles were at home. This is on the road.
And it's a
Short week.
rivalry game. There's maybe a little more urgency to
Short week.
get
Yeah,
extra points on.
I still don't fully believe in the Eagles.
Yeah.
They've had a very easy schedule, and they're in the NFC. So I like a lower. I like Thursday night.
And it's not getting any tougher this week.
No. I think they're not going to really. I think they're just going to try to get through the game and not get anybody hurt. They have a long break until the next week. So maybe this will just be a game where they, maybe if it's comfortable, they might take some of their starters out early, and just live on to play another week. So that's my hope. Again, also, who knows? The Texans might surprise and hold the Eagles down, but I still think, I like the under there. What do you think of what's your second bet?
My second pick, I'm going to go with a current trend here also, where I like to bet against Tampa. So I'm going to take the Rams are the underdog there against at Tampa. Only three points though. Rams +3 is my second pick.
The rematch of a playoff matchup last year in the NFC, where the Rams, in a very exciting game, just barely beat the Buccaneers. I think they won by a field goal in the last seconds, or they won by 3 points, I think. Or it was a very close game, I remember, in the divisional round at Tampa. And looks like both teams this year are really struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know who's going to win that game, but I could see I understand. Maybe you think the Rams are in slightly better shape than Buccaneers right now.
The Rams defensive line is pretty solid too, so I could see Brady having even less time to throw than has had,
Hmm.
and he has not done that well under pressure this season either. So I don't see Tampa winning a lot of games in the near future. I don't see them winning this one especially.
Yeah, that is the only 425 game on CBS this year. So that's going to be the national televised Tony Romo
Yeah.
Jim Nance game, and that game looked much better before the season started than it does now. So
For sure.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
What's is your third pick a national televised game?
no, I don't believe it. It would be televised. I think primarily in two markets: Southern Florida and Chicagoland area, and that is the Bears Dolphins game.
Many of the TVs in the Chicagoland area may be turned off specifically to not watch this game. I guess.
Here Tua has been very successful so far this year. He has two of the best receivers in the league, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill to throw to. But I think Tua's success has been a little bit unsustainable. He's leading the league in passing efficiency and quarterback rating and all these things. But Miami has not played terribly well their last two games against not so great teams. They won 16-10 against the Steelers at home, a game that they could have easily lost. Tua almost threw some big picks there, and I think Miami really capitalized on Pittsburgh's turnovers. Every time there was an interceptable ball, they got it, and they barely beat the Lions on the road. So I think the Bears are better than the Lions. The Bears' offense has looked pretty lively the last couple of weeks. They've averaged more than 30 points a game. So I think even if Miami wins, it's going to be close. And so the Bears are 5-point underdogs at home. That's a pretty big amount. So I think I could see Miami winning, but I could also see the Bears keeping it really close and perhaps winning on their own. So Bears +5 against Miami. Fields has been doing a little better lately. I think the rushing attack for the Bears, Herbert and Montgomery, has been solid.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting more, and Fields also runs the ball very well. So maybe I'm talking myself into the Bears at least. This was a hard. I think this felt like a hard week pick for me.
Yeah. The slate of games were when I was trying to look at these to decide which picks it was, I just was just scrolling. I was like, I don't want anything to do with any of these games. Finally, I get to the last three games on the list anyway, and those were the three that I ended up picking to go with. It was the last three games.
What was your third pick?
My third was another bet that was successful last week, betting on Baltimore on the road. This time Baltimore's playing on the road against New Orleans and are 3-point favorites this time. So I'm taking Baltimore on the road here, -3.
Yes, yeah. The Saints did win the last game at home against the Raiders by a significant margin. So I think and you never know what Taysom Hill is gonna do.
Get 3 touchdowns or whatever.
And I like the Ravens in that spot too. I think they're probably the third best team in the AFC behind Chiefs and the Bills. So
they've really struggled at times this year, but I think the games they've lost have been collapses at home after having had big leads, right? And this is not one of those scenarios, so I will confidently go with the Baltimore on this one.
Okay, so look forward to seeing our betting. It can't go any worse for me this week than it did last week. And now it's as announcers like to say, a brand new ball game, given the fact that we're tied in our betting. When I had the lead for several weeks, but now we were tied again. Even though I guess it's technically not brand new. It's still the game we've been playing. Just the leads have changed.
Well, and the length of the duration of what's left is only half of what it was to start with, less than half.
Well,
No.
we're right in the middle. We're in the middle. We're right in the middle of.
Yeah,
No, we still have,
no, it's,
we still have
halfway.
18 weeks. So we after this week
One
we'll be
shot.
halfway through. And I'm looking
We're,
forward to
we're
seeing
guaranteed
how,
to have losing records at the halfway point, though. But
that's true.
yeah,
It can be close though.
After last week, I could have just gone with the strategy of just wait till you make your pick, and then take the other one.
Take the opposite, like a stanza approach.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
that's
next
like that's like betting against yourself, though. In this case, I could.
if I start going 0 for 3 again, maybe next week you'll want to do that.
Yeah. Or just to try to spite me, wait for me to pick, and then you pick the same thing just so I can't get that one, right?
That's right.
Your bet would tank. You can do that at the end. If you get like a 1-game lead, just take the same bet that I do, just so you can't lose. You can't get down any further, right?
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I can't see myself doing all those things just to spite you, but it's possible. It's possible. So should we wrap things up for this week?
Sure.
I think so too. It's been another exciting episode of the Warning and Trick Power Hour. I'm sure all of our listeners and viewers are still glued to their seats, even though this has been an extra long Power Hour, I believe. And even that's what you get here at the WTPH. For the price of 1 hour, you often get 90 minutes, and that's how we do things. Anyway, this has been the Warning Trick Power Hour. I am Michael Werman. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff. We, as I said before, the Warning Trick Power Hour. Please like and/or subscribe to our many podcast video delivery vehicles, and we will see you again next week. Good luck with your teams this week on the NFL betting, and we will see you another time. Until then, good day.